I'm going to talk to you about three main reasons why the human beings behind the goal are the reason the goal isn't achieved. There are more, and you might have different reasons in this because we're all different and we all self sabotage and get in our own ways, right? But I'm going to give you the top three that I've seen, not only personally, but also with my clients. A big one is fear. Welcome to Becoming Tantalum with me, Megan Bennell. Discover your brightest self in a journey of transformation and resilience. Let's embark on this path together, starting now. Hello, and welcome back to Becoming Tantalum. My name is Megan, and I'm your host and life coach, and I am here to help you take a deep dive into something that you might not even know is so appropriately timed. We are right up against the last quarter of the year. And so I want to talk to you about something that has to do with 2025, which I know you still have to get through the holidays. You have to get through maybe some birthdays, perhaps some anniversaries. It's a busy time of year, but this is the perfect time of year for you to do some very specific work so that next year you can absolutely crush it. We are going to be talking about something that's called an impossible goal, and then the steps that you're going to take to make that impossible goal not so impossible. For those of you that are maybe business owners, or perhaps you work for a company, it could be something that's business related. For those of you that are not either working for a company, maybe you're a stay at home mom, best job ever. Maybe you own your own little small company and it's kind of just a side gig, or maybe you just really have an impossible goal that you want to work on personally. It doesn't matter. For all of you, this could be a business related goal or a personal related goal. And what I'm hoping is that you see the value in impossible goals, the pre work you do to prep yourself for them, and that you set both business and personal impossible goals moving forward. So, I'm going to talk to you about what it means to have an impossible goal shortly. So, don't let that little word quandary keep you from listening to me. Before we get to that, um, the truth about goals gets a little dark here, my friends. Many goals are never achieved, but it's not because the goals are impossible. Rather, there's two main reasons that we abandon goals as human beings. My goal here is to not only have you set this impossible goal, but then help you avoid those two main reasons why a huge majority of goals are abandoned. So, we're going to start by setting your impossible goal. The idea of the impossible goal isn't that it's not attainable. Rather, it's that it's a stretch goal. It forces you to push yourself and or your business beyond what seems realistic now. See, here's what most of us do in life. We operate, because this is what our brain tells us to do, we operate by doing our best to look at the next step. And so we make decisions based on where we are going next. But that next step is always the next lowest hanging fruit, the next most obvious. Or for some of us, it's just putting out fires. Rather than allowing your business or your personal self to just be walking into the next easiest step, I really want you to stretch yourself. Think bigger than that. And here's why this is so important. One, setting impossible goals, looking beyond that next realistic next step, that forces you to innovate. And when you innovate, you think differently. When you aim for something that seems out of reach, you stop relying on your old methods, your current habits, and you start finding creative solutions because the obvious isn't so obvious anymore. And you tap into this potential that's waiting and ready to be unlocked. So we need to do something that's going to cause you to get innovative. The second reason is that impossible goals really force you to shift your mindset. When you set that impossible, that stretch goal, you start believing in your ability to grow and to stretch beyond what you're comfortable with. You're going to get out of your box, out of your comfort zone. And that shift in mindset is crucial for you to be successful, whether it's in business or it's in your personal life and in your continued achievement. So let's get innovative. Let's work on shifting our mindset by setting these things called impossible goals. The best thing about these is that there was a saying, right? I can't remember who it's by, but it's something about if you aim for the moon, if you miss, you may hit a star. And the thing is that even if you don't reach this stretch goal, this impossible goal to its full extent, the progress that you'll make is going to be mind blowing. It'll be more than you would have made if you were just making that next logical step. I'm going to tell you two examples of impossible goals. I remember when I was starting my business, and my goal when I first started was just to cover my costs, right? Like that's obvious. So then after I do that, then the next obvious step is to make like $5,000 a month, let's say, right? But I never in my mind had I dreamed of getting into 6 or 7 figures because I just wasn't there yet. Do I want it to go there? Like for sure. But those are not the goals that I had because that wasn't what made sense next. That wasn't my next possible goal. And so I met this coach, hired this coach, and he encouraged me. He introduced me to this idea of impossible goals, and he encouraged me to set an impossible goal for my business. And so he's like, "What's your impossible goal?" And so I told him, I think it was like $5,000 a month or something. And he was like, "I just think that's your next step." And he said, "I think you're just a couple clicks away from that." And so at the time, that seemed crazy that I'm just a couple clicks away from that, right? And he said, "It needs to be bigger." And I was like, "Okay, how about like $100,000 a year?" And he was like, again, I don't think that that's really unrealistic for this year. I want you to think bigger." And so it got scary. It got really uncomfortable. And I said, "Okay, I want to make $1 million a year." Now, at that time, like that was unbelievable thinking, right? It really, really forced me to get innovative because if that's my goal, I've got to do things differently. And I believed in that. I believed that that was possible. And because of that, I had this mind shift and it changed the way that I operated, the way that I attacked things, how many fails I was willing to have, right? All of those things. And it forced me to dig deep. I offered programs that I had never offered before, and I made offers that I'd never offered before, and I reached out in ways that I had never reached out before. And all because my goal wasn't just that next logical step, it was so much bigger, so much grander. Now, to be honest, I did not reach $1 million that year, but I tripled my revenue that year, which would have never happened had I just gone on the next, on my path towards the next logical step. That's an example of like a business impossible goal. I aimed for the moon and I landed on a fantastic star. That, by the way, got me closer to that goal that perhaps isn't so impossible anymore. On a personal note, and this might not make sense to a lot of you, but if you're anything like me, it's going to make a lot of sense. So I think that if there were Olympics in people pleasing, I would have 100% have gotten the gold medal every year. Forget this every 4-year thing. I was born a people pleaser, raised a people pleaser, and was a people pleaser to the max. That sounds great, right? Because my goal in life was just to make other people happy. But the problem with that is that I was so influenced by people's moods. My success was determined by how other people felt. And if you've been listening to my podcasts, you're aware that you have no control over how other people feel. On top of that, because my happiness, my feel of joy, and my sadness, all of that rested on how other people felt. So I was giving everybody else the power for how I felt. They don't want that power, and it really isn't up to them. Once I got into this impossible goal thing, I said, you know what? My impossible goal, because for me, this was absolutely impossible. It was definitely not a logical next step. My goal was to be caring and loving and supportive, just like I always had been, and to not take responsibility for anyone's happiness but my own. I know to some of you that might not seem like much, but to me, that was an impressive thought. I came from this terrible level of people pleasing, and I just thought, man, if I could I cared, but if I could not be influenced by the way that other people felt and instead could be empowered by my own emotions and feelings and could still care and love and support them, but not have there be a caveat of whether I'm caring enough, supportive enough, loving enough by how they felt, right? Whether or not they were happy. And so I went to work because to me that was way out there. I learned so many skills and so many tools and I applied them and I practiced and daily I was committed to changing the way that my mind worked when it came to how I felt and how other people felt and how I can more appropriately support them. I never thought in a million years that this was something that would be possible in a matter of a year. I had been people pleasing for decades, right? But 6 months later, literally daily putting in that work, 6 months later, it finally hit me that I truly was 100% in charge of how I felt. And while I cared how other people felt, I did not have any feeling of a tie of responsibility to those feelings. Even when I know that something that I did specifically caused them to think a thought that made them feel happy or disappointed or whatever, those were their feelings. And so that allowed me this freedom and this empowerment to truly care and love and support in a way that was true to me and that didn't affect my family and that didn't affect me. And it was amazing. In 6 months, it was a daily dedication, huge commitment. Took all the skills, took all the tools, and put them to work. And there I was, impossible goal met. So that's a personal goal. You can make whatever kind of goal you want to make, but I really want you to think, what is something that is not that logical next step? Not that next low hanging fruit, but what is an impossible goal that you want to achieve? Could be for your business, it could be doubling revenue, it could be expanding into new markets, launching new services, revolutionizing your industry. Or for you personally, maybe it's losing weight. Maybe it's increasing your discipline. Maybe it's mastering time management. Maybe it's getting organization on lockdown, right? Or improving your relationships. What is it? I'd love it so much if you would pause and go write down that specific impossible goal and come back. So, the hard truth that I'm going to bring back to you again is that most goals are never achieved. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just got all excited about my impossible goal. And now you're turning it to the negative. What happened? No, this is just real. And what I want you to do is be really aware of two major pitfalls when it comes to achieving your goals. The first one is a failure to set yourself up for success. So we've talked about this before, way, way, way long ago. But if you don't plan, then you can just plan on failing, right? So here's what this looks like. And I actually have a group coaching program where we do something called Crushing Goals. It's like an 8-week program, and it really breaks all of this down. And I'm just going to nutshell the nutshell version of the Cliff Note version for you right here. But it'll give you an idea of what you need to do with that impossible goal. Remember, this is an impossible goal for 2025. Okay. So as I talk about dates and planning it out, you're planning it for next year. So first, look back on this year, or maybe look back on the last 5 years. What isn't working? Because now you know what you need to change. On top of that, what is working? What's going really, really well? This is not what you're going to base it all on, but it's important to start where you are. So that's step number one. Thinking as with the impossible goal as your filter, think about what's working and what's not working if that's your goal. Okay. Step number two is to break your goal down into actionable steps. Again, we've talked about this before. These can be kind of big actionable steps because you're going to break them down much, much more later. Okay. But you're going to break it down into actionable steps. What can you do? What do you need to do in order to achieve that goal? Then, and this I want you to spend some solid time on, you are going to list out the obstacles to you achieving that goal. Every single one you can think of. They can be, if it's business related, it could be something that's financially, it could be logistical, it could be manpower wise, it could be skills you don't have. I mean, personal, all the same thing. Maybe you know that you have an issue with motivation or with time management. All of the obstacles that you can possibly think of, I want you to write them all down one by one. And then you're going to spend also a significant amount of time solving every single one of them. So you might not be able to actually go through with the solution right now. Maybe this is an obstacle that you're going to reach in like May, but I want you to pre-solve it for you so that when you get to May and you have this obstacle arise, you already know that it's coming, you already have a solution, and you're just going to put it into place. To be honest, you're not going to be able to think about everything, right? Life throws you twists and turns, and that's great. So when other obstacles come up, you're not going to be flooded with frustration or being overwhelmed by all of your obstacles because you've already pre-solved for most of them. So when those occasional ones come up that you weren't anticipating, you're already in go mode and you're already in solution mode. And so you can attack those and make them a speed bump rather than a stop sign. The last thing you're going to do is calendar it out. And I mean it, like literally on a calendar. So think of your actionable steps and put those on the calendar. When does this one need to be done in order to finish all of this by 2025? When does the next one need to be done in order to finish it all by 2025? And so you're going to calendar it out. And those are pretty big ones, right? We talked about those being pretty big actionable steps. Then you're going to break them down so much so that I could ask you any single day in 2025 what specifically you're doing to work towards your impossible goal, and you would know it. It would be clear, it would be black and white. I could even ask you in a specific month, hey, what are you doing in June according to your plan to help you make progress towards reaching this impossible goal? So you're going to calendar it out. I know that that's like a pretty little minimal nutshell, right? And if you're interested, you're more than welcome to reach out. You can join my Crushing Goals group series, and I can help you break this all down so that it's nearly impossible to not achieve it. But really, what I want to talk to you about and why this is so time sensitive is because the second obstacle is an even bigger reason that people don't reach their goals. So the first one is that they don't plan, right? So you're going to plan it out. But the second one is not that the goal is impossible, but it's the human being behind it. We are like master self-sabotagers. We are so great at getting in our own darn way, right? We're so good at making excuses and making any sort of obstacle mean that this isn't meant to be. We're so good at getting all kerfuffled up in our own brains that we aren't even willing to go for what it is that we want to go for. So that is what I want to talk about right now, and how you can work on avoiding that before you hit the ground running with your goal in 2025. I'm going to talk to you about 3 main reasons why the human beings behind the goal are the reason the goal isn't achieved. There are more, and you might have different reasons in this because we're all different and we all self-sabotage and get in our own way in our own ways, right? But I'm going to give you the top 3 that I've seen, not only personally, but also with my clients. A big one is fear. So we set these big goals, but down deep, we're afraid of something. Maybe we're afraid of failure. Maybe we're afraid of being uncomfortable. Maybe we're afraid of the grind that it's going to make us, go through for short term. Really, fear is something that allows our brains the permission, if you will, to give us every reason why we should stop and not pursue whatever it is that we're dreaming big of. So fear, that's a big one. Fear holds us back from being all in. The second is limiting beliefs. So we have, and we've talked about this before too, we have internal narratives, this story that we tell ourselves, and we'll tell ourselves that we're not capable, that this isn't realistic, that this isn't something that we can do. It's going to be too hard. It's going to hurt too much. And those limiting beliefs self-sabotage your efforts because they're constantly telling you, even if only subconsciously, they're constantly telling you that this isn't going to happen, that you're not going to do it, that you're not going to make it, that, you're not going to be successful. And those prevent us from aiming bigger, different, better than that logical next step. So really looking at our inner narrative, that story we're telling ourselves, and seeing if it's something that needs to be rewritten or retold in still a truthful way, but in one that serves us and supports ourselves instead of self-sabotaging ourselves. And then the last one is lack of discipline and accountability. And really, discipline isn't about showing up perfect every day. Discipline is showing up even when you don't want to. And every day, your 100% might look a little different. I woke my son up this morning for a soccer game. He had a ridiculously early soccer game, and we had to drive far, far away for it. And he was telling me in the car, he said, Mom, I think I only have about 50% to give today, which, had to coach him through that because we're not even on the field yet, right? But I explained to him, I said, your 100% every day might look a little different. But the difference is that you still show up at 100% of what you have. And that's discipline. You still show up even when you don't feel like it. But sometimes we need a little bit more than that. And that's where accountability comes in. It's easy to lose momentum when we don't have some sort of accountability. So those 3 things, fear, huge one, limiting beliefs, massive, and then a lack of discipline and accountability. So Those three things, this idea of getting the human being behind the goal out of the way so you can achieve it, is what I want to talk to you about right now, because we're about to enter Q4, the last quarter of this year. And this is the work you need to put in now so that you can go rock that impossible goal in 2025. To achieve those goals, whatever they happen to be, we need to do some work on us first. Your brain, my brain, our noggins. And here's why. I want you at the end of 2025 to feel so excited and proud and blown away by the progress that you've made, whether you reached that impossible goal or you just reached a really rad star. But the only way to do that is to get out of your own way, right? And if you want to think of this in an even bigger terms, this goal really should just be for you. I mean, it might be for your business, but something you can do. It might be for your personal life, but it's something that you can do. This goal should not be based upon other people's efforts. The reason that I say that is it's your work that you're putting in. It's your efforts. It's your reorganization. It's your whatever it happens to be. But it's bigger than that when the results come in, because you're going to have results that are going to blow away your own mind, which is great. But then on top of that, it's going to ripple out to people in your close village. Could be people that you love. It could be your friends, your family. It could be your coworkers. It could be your kids. And they didn't have to do anything for this goal. And yet they are going to notice the difference. It's not just going to be you. It's going to be a massive impact on your life, which includes those people around you. And that's what I want for you. What I don't want for you is for a whole nother year to go by and nothing's changed. No more years wasted. So in Q4, the next 3 months, I want you to work on you so that you're out of your own way to reach this impossible goal. It's really nice to talk about it and do all these things, but what exactly is it that you need to do? What is the work that you need to put in? Well, again, each one of us is just a little bit different, but I'm going to address those same three big ones, and hopefully one or two of them resonate with you. And if you ever need any advice on whatever else you need to do, hop on a call. I'll listen to your impossible goal, ask you a few questions, and kind of pinpoint what it is that you could be working on for Q4. So for those three main big ones that I talked about, the first one, you need to confront your fear. Fear is a natural part of growth, but it shouldn't paralyze you. So ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Is it failure? Is it disappointing someone? Is it criticism? Is it being uncomfortable? Is it being in pain? Maybe your goal has to do with losing weight. You know, you have to work out, but you don't really like doing that because it hurts. A lot of times, the worst case scenario that we imagine is really far less damaging than the consequences of not trying it at all. Take 10 minutes and write down your biggest fears, whatever those happen to be. Think of your impossible goal and what are a few of those biggest fears that you have. And then I want you to write down what would actually happen if that came true. So whatever you're afraid of, imagine that actually came true. What would actually happen? Most of the time, I think you'll realize that even if the worst happens, you'll survive it, you'll learn from it, you'll come out stronger on the other side, and you'll be closer to your goal. I remember when I opened my own business, I was so afraid of failure. And I think why is because what that meant for me is that I was a failure, not that I failed, right? Do you hear the difference? So when you say like, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure, like I can't even do this, I'm making it seem like me as a person cannot succeed, which we know is not true. Instead, what I could have been thinking was, well, that didn't work. That failed. But now you see that has nothing to do with me. I put in effort in something, it didn't work, then that obviously isn't the answer. And I just need to try something else. And then I learned, I think I've talked about this before too, I learned the idea of a fail folder. And so now every week I have a certain number of fails depending on what I'm doing in my business that I have to reach before I know I'm done that week. So sometimes it's 2 fails, sometimes it's 15 fails, but I literally record them. And every single fail, I go back and I look at what didn't work and why, and what lessons I can learn. And now all of that failure is just information. It's not me failing. It's that things aren't working and there's a lesson to be learned. And that means that after every single fail, I come out smarter, more motivated, stronger, resilient, all of that on the other side. So I'm a better fit business owner after each fail than I was before. Not that you have to adopt that, but just to have an idea if that's your biggest fear. That I know that that was mine. The second thing that we talked about was limiting beliefs. So ask yourself, what story, even if subconsciously, sometimes you got to dig deep and be really aware of what's in that brain of yours. What story are you telling yourself about your capabilities? If you're thinking things like, I've never done this before, so I can't, or I don't have the skills, so I can't do it. If you're doing that, you're limiting yourself. And those limiting beliefs are going to dictate your future. If you say you can't, you won't. And if you say that you've never done it or that you failed 5 times before, so obviously you can't, you won't. Right. So look at the story that you're telling yourself. I, I remember when somebody likened this metaphor and I loved it. They were like, hey, a baby doesn't fall down and then decide that they can't walk. They know that they can walk. And so they just keep trying till they do. I was like, that's absolutely true. That's so true. I have this group that's called Lose It Forever, and it's a group coaching series on the biological and mental aspects behind weight loss. So instead of looking at the nutrition and the exercise, we look at your brain and then how weight loss actually happens in your body. And there are so many women that come into that group like every single time at the beginning, and they say, I can't lose weight or diets don't work. Those are their beliefs. Do diets work? For sure. People use them all the time. Can everybody lose weight? For sure. Like it's literally the way that the human body works. I'm not saying that it's just as easy for them as someone else. I'm not saying that what they've done has worked in the past, but those two beliefs, when they come in that way, we have to fix those because that's them telling themselves at the very beginning, this isn't going to work. And guess what? Unless we change those beliefs, it's not going to work. And so really dive deep into the story that you're telling yourself. Like if you're saying something like, well, I'm not good at managing people, I want you to write that down. Write down your limiting beliefs. And then I want you to counteract it with evidence that that's not true. So maybe you say, I'm not good at managing people. Write down examples of times that you successfully led a team or that you resolved a conflict. Show yourself that you have the ability to be a successful manager, right? Maybe it's, well, I'm just not dedicated. This isn't going to happen because I'm not dedicated to it. Well, write down that limiting belief and then find evidence in your life that you actually can be dedicated. Maybe it's not in that arena, but that's a skill. So if you have it somewhere else, show yourself that evidence. That's a way to help your brain recognize that the story that it's telling itself is just not true. And then the final one is cultivating discipline and accountability. Again, discipline isn't about being perfect every day. It's just about showing up when you don't want to. Adding in some accountability for that, whether it's a mentor or a coach or a peer group or a friend, having somebody that can hold you accountable makes all the difference. And so in this quarter, that's something you can do is set up what your accountability is going to look like. And you need to be honest with yourself. So I've done this before where I'm like, hey, this is my goal. Like, is it okay if I check in with you like once a week? Well, sometimes the people that I pick are not the people that I really care if I fail or not fail in front of, or they're not the people that are really going to push me or ask questions as to why that fails. That doesn't work. Sometimes it's that the accountability system that I've put into place is like more work than the actually doing of the work, right? So you need to be honest and vulnerable about what works. I remember when I finally was like, I'm done. I want to lose weight. I'm done. And I know that I need to go to the gym and I need to go to the gym like a lot. I knew I have a gym in my garage, guys, and I literally have worked out in that gym like maybe 2 or 3 times ever, right? Like I could go and work out 4 times a day if I wanted to. I knew that what I needed was a class that I showed up to where people would ask me the next time I showed up if I wasn't there. Like, hey, where you been? And even better, if I could have a friend that went to that class with me that was expecting me to be there because I won't let them down. They want me there at 5 a.m., I'll be there at 5 a.m. And so that's the kind of accountability I know I needed for that particular goal. Look at what you need and be honest with yourself to help you stay disciplined. You can build that accountability system now in Q4 so that when you get to 2025, it's already in place and ready to go. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this idea. The success of either your business impossible goal or your personal impossible goal in 2025 is going to come down to you. the human being behind the goal. Your goals, your strategy, your plan, and actions are all important, but none of them are enough to have that goal come to fruition unless you do the personal work ahead of time to get yourself out of your own darn way. You have to be on your team instead of the one self-sabotaging. So as you move through the final quarter of this year, take the time to reflect on 2024. Start where you are, right? Set your impossible goal for 2025. Create that detailed plan. But more than that, dig deep into you and what you need to do to personally overcome any fears or limiting beliefs, or to stay disciplined and have that accountability. And maybe it's something else, whatever it is, to get you on board with your own goal. And I believe in this so much that I am more than willing to meet with any of you that would like to discuss this. What you would need to do ahead of time is set out that impossible goal. What is it that you want to do? I don't even need to know the detailed plan yet. Just what is it that you want to do in 2025? I need you to put in some thought as to what you think would cause you to not achieve that goal for you personally. I'll give you an hour and I'll ask you a bazillion questions. And then I'll give you a plan of what you need to do for Q4 on you so that you're ready to go attack that goal in 2025. So if you're interested, all you need to do is reach out. You can call or text at 909-855-4755, or you are more than welcome to go to tantalumcoaching.com. Remember, that's TANTALUM.com. And I'm sorry, tantalumcoaching.com. And I am more than willing to talk to you and figure out what it is that you need to do specifically in Q4 to be ready for that, because I want you to be committed and dedicated and excited about this goal. And I also don't want it to be set up for failure before you even start. Remember that your progress towards achieving your goal will only grow as much as you grow. And so the more you invest in yourself in this Q4, the more prepared you'll be to go crush that impossible goal in 2025. My wish for you is that you're going to start exactly where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and in this quarter, discover that there's really no limit to what you can do. It's been a pleasure. I hope that this gave you some things to think about and hopefully do. If you want to reach out, please do. And until next week, I hope you have a fun time planning on how you're going to work on you. Have a good week. Thank you for joining me today. If you want to take all of these concepts and tools to a deeper level, apply them to your life, and watch the transformation happen, I would love for you to join the Tantalum Tribe. That's a monthly membership where all of our community has access to live coaching, self-paced courses, guest coaches, podcast study guides, anonymous question boards, and more. You too can transform your life using the tools and strategies that we have, with accountability built in from our community. I really hope that you join us at tantalumcoaching.com. That's TANTALUM coaching.com. Just click Join the Tribe. I can't wait to see you in there.
An Ironic Media production. Visit us at ironickmedia.com.